will graduate and daughter to this lovely man next to me, Shafer Suggs, former NFL player. How are you today?
You call me lovely. That is so sweet. I'm
I
doing
know
well.
I'm so sweet sometimes. He already Buford. We told our guests today too to bring up their Suggs mugs. Dad, where's your Suggs mug?
Right here.
And hopefully our guests listen to their own Suggs mugs. Um, Dad, how you doing? How's the weather over there in the Midwest?
So it was absolutely beautiful yesterday for Devin's graduation. Today is a little cloudy.
Oh yeah, proud Papa. Let's go over this.
Oh, there he is.
Yesterday. Can you explain to us how he did his graduation? As you can see, he's in a sweet ride.
Yeah. Uncle Mike came over and surprised him as he walked out the door. So he had to drive up the graduation style in his convertible. So that was really, really neat. Uncle Mike and Aunt Brooke came over and spent a couple hours with us. And beautiful ceremony. And then later that day, they had the actual virtual speeches at night at 7 o'clock. But as different as it was, Faith. I experienced the same level of emotion that I experienced with you in both your graduations. To realize this young man actually graduated from high school was a wonderful thing.
Right. So tell us a little bit how it went. So they drove through. They got out. They
Yeah,
just.
so we drove up to the stage. I mean, they had it set where by your alphabet, you come at a certain time. We had to be there at 3. And we drove up and we drove in this little maze. And,
Uh-huh.
we had check-in stations, and then we go right up to the stage. They asked Devin to get out, grab this diploma, the pictures, and got back in the car. I was able to take pictures, and the teachers and the principal were all rooting and cheering for the kids along the way. It was really neat. It was really neat for them to be acknowledged that way that they were.
Being creative. That's pretty neat and special. I know I haven't heard anything about any other graduations, but I think that's a pretty one. It's pretty interesting how they were so well organized.
It was. It was.
Hard to
It
do.
was, it was really nice. I mean, I think the whole thing took probably 15 minutes.
Uh huh.
So it was a memorable moment.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, how's everything going? I know we touched on this last time with the news and everything is all over the place. It's escalating. We're entering our 6th day of protest and rioting that's going on in America. So how are you guys staying positive? I know first we had a pandemic and we're still in that, and now we have all this. So how are you guys doing over in the Suggs household?
We're doing well. I mean, I think it's very difficult to watch. I'm a big Martin Luther King fan. So his words really resonate. And for me, when it comes to how to really um, uh, share what your feelings are, protest, and it was a way that was very effective. And I think we lost sight of that because you have the people who are actually protesting, you have people that are taking advantage of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a sensitive topic, and I think the level of the acknowledgement is the message that needs to resonate, and that's what I think we're missing. And hopefully, with the grace of God, we'll get to that point. But it's a huge topic right now. And,
I think, yeah, I think that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said it the best, though. He released a statement to the New York or LA Times where he said that at some point people get tired and they get pushed to the edge, and that's what we're seeing. So you see a lot of people who are taking advantage of the situation, but you also see a lot of people who are just like, well, we tried the peaceful protest and we tried all that, and then that worked. So at this point now,
right, right.
it's crazy. I mean, you told me the other day that you haven't seen it like this since you were 14, 15 years old.
Right. Yeah. And that's, you have, with me, you have, 5 or 6 decades that, growing up in the civil rights movement, your grandfather and your grandmother were very active in the civil rights movement. Got a chance to march in Washington and be able to effectively, but you had different ways of doing it.
Right.
Uh, you had Black Panthers, you had Dr. Martin Luther King, disobedience, nonviolence, and all different ways. But the reality is, I have not seen it this way. I do remember at 13, 12, 13 years old, watching the news and watching some of the same things happen almost 45, 50 years ago.
Right. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning.
Yeah, so I think that that's only right that now we transition into something today, especially. Um, it wouldn't be right if we didn't touch on a topic that had to do with race. And as such a mixture of a family, which is part of our story, black father, white mother, and two beautifully biracial kids, we have grown up, and you guys did such a great job of trying to allow us to navigate race in a way, because at the end of the day, we had to navigate race in a different way than you would have had growing up, or mom would have had growing up. So we have spent a lot of time navigating the sports part of making a champion and all that, but it's only right now that 2020, the end of May, and now we're starting June 1st, that we dive into a little bit of racial conversation and debate. And I think that this would be good for a lot of people because it's a lot of things that people want to say and talk about and learn about. I know we've had viewers reach out to us asking for our input on the biracial development of a child. And on Wednesday, we'll dive into the biracial and how parents can help in growing up into the biracial unit. But we have a special guest, well, two special guests today. It's exciting because those of you who know us really well, hey, Coach Mike, thanks for tuning in. We have two special guests. So today we have our wonderful recent Bolingbrook High School graduate going off to Yale, as you guys saw. But also we have our wonderful guest, Jordan Campbell, who played basketball with me, but now she models and is in Cincinnati, Ohio. Exciting. And as you can see, here's the three of us when we were younger, the NFL draft when it was in Chicago. Oh, Debbie, look how short you were compared to us. But without further ado, let's bring on these special guests. Devin, Jordan, welcome. You are live.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning, Devin. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning.
Thank you guys for having me. I feel so honored to be on with you guys.
No, it's gonna be fun, Devin.
Sam.
Congrats to you, Devin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Big congrats to this big man now. That picture, you were shorter than us. What happened? You are huge now.
Yeah.
But as you can see, the three of us on this little screen are biracial children. If you can't tell by our curly hair and under pink skin tones that never change. We are happy to be here. Jordan, how are you doing right now, with all that's going on?
I mean, this is crazy. Obviously, we've never seen anything like this happening, so it's overwhelming. I mean, there is a lot of different emotions that I am feeling, that I am processing, that I'm dealing with. I did attend a protest, and that was amazing, overwhelming, sad, and it feels like a movie. It does not feel like this is happening the way it is. So just a lot going on.
Right. And Devin, as a recent college graduate and someone who's about to enter the world, how do you feel?
It's definitely, a lot. It's a very different, period in time.
Right.
Even on top of what's already going on. But I think it's very interesting on the international impact that it's had.
Right.
It's not just America anymore. It's the whole world that's, fed up with certain things and they want change. And I think it's very cool that, more than it's bigger than America at this point.
Absolutely. This is happening all over, and we're all able to see that now.
Right. So I think that it's very interesting of this topic because as biracial kids, we come from parents who are not anything like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
From two parts of a big racial divide in America, especially, and around the world, but especially right now, it's definitely Black against white conversation. It's not really enough people of color right now. It's definitely a Black Lives Matter situation. And one thing that people are saying is why can't people love Black people as much as they love the Black culture? And I think that this is going to be a great show to dive in, just kind of, dig into our brains a little bit and see how we came to navigate race as biracial children in America. So
Mm-hmm.
first, let's dive into it. Is Devin? Sorry, you're gonna be first. Is when did you realize you were a little different?
It definitely took me to a certain age, I can't remember what age, to understand exactly what my race is. I looked at my parents and I didn't really see a difference. I just saw my parents, so I didn't see black and white. And when I went to school, I went to a moderately diverse elementary school. I saw black kids, I saw white kids, I saw every other ethnicity. And it took me a while to understand that I was black and white. I was biracial. So it definitely took a while for me to understand that I wasn't one or the other. So, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, but once I understood that, I thought it was a really cool, realization for me.
Right. And Jordan, what about you?
When I realized that I was different from everybody else, living in a very predominantly white area, having grown up with my white side of my family, I mean, I saw it. I didn't think anything of it. I just recognized that and kind of just was a kid, and but there were situations of discrimination or just differences that white kids would make, and I didn't think anything of it. So um I just thought we were all human race. We were all God's children, God's people. And so it definitely hit me once I hit school and that kind of stuff.
And Dad, I mean, you guys can try to protect us from the race idea, um, for a young age when we're within your homes. But when we entered school, did you think that maybe now we would start to see a little divide, or that we were different? How did you guys navigate that as a interracial couple?
Well, so it's something that I was comfortable with because I grew up in an environment that there was a lot of um, um, multicultural mixing. So I
Right.
was comfortable with my mom was very, very different. She grew up in a predominantly white environment. And the one thing that was really nice about mommy was she was so embracing not only of our culture but of our race. That was partly because of your grandmother. Your
Right.
grandmother was just such an ambassador of, of, of this topic. And she really fed off of a lot of those conversations, not only in regards to hair, but just the perception, even within our race.
Yeah.
She was able to envision going to our home and going to our family dinners, meeting our relatives, realizing that even within my family, even within our race, there was a lot of diversity, socioeconomical. So I think for us, we were comfortable with it. It's funny because you hear the question, what about your kids, right? What would they be, right? My answer would always be, they're going to be God's children. And we steadfast to that. Pursue, it was a little different. But I think your grandmother was just wonderful because she was always a phone call away.
Right.
And one of the things we did was, and if you really think about it, remember all of our teams that I had? My teams were very diverse. And I
Absolutely.
purposely put us in environments with kids that look like you. And I purposely did that because I know that a lot of what you guys heard when you got to school were kids that were not used to that. They were
Mm-hmm.
not used to being around kids with different
Right.
cultures. And we purposely tried to put you in a culture. One of the reasons we moved from Homer Glen to Bolingbrook. Bolingbrook is the most diverse community in the state. Was for that reason. She actually headed that mission. She said, she said, I got to make sure my daughter can dance, right? So I got to get her out of Homer Glen. So but because of the way we were, and you guys heard the conversation, I'm not saying that your identity topic was seamless, but it was something that wasn't taboo. We talked about it all the time, right?
Absolutely.
We talked about it all the time. It wasn't something that, compared to when I grew up, there were parts of the country when I was in elementary, middle school, and high school that race mixing was against the law.
Right.
I mean, it was very, very, very different. There was such a negative connotation to it because, when you saw a lot of kids, we call fixed kids back in the day, and in most cases, it was a result of something negative that happened, all the way back to the slave days, right? And that's why it was funny because mommy said, God, I want to, and we actually sought out couples. We sought out couples that were interracial couples to be a part of your life. That they did a very good job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's perfect that you brought that up because those of you who don't know, take time to, look at Loving versus Virginia. That was one of the top court cases at the time that, if you haven't seen, it's also a movie, that an interracial couple was trying to be married or live together at the time in Virginia, which is a complicated state for those of who know, who spend time in the South. And so I'm glad that you're here to kind of give us a touch on what interracial, Dad, you touched on interracial marriages, but how did people view biracial children or multiracial children? Because at time, for many who know their history, know that the mulatto and the biracial children at the time were those who were probably molested and raped. So how did during your time did the view on biracial children change to maybe where it is now?
It began to change a lot. I mean, so and because I was a history major, and because I grew up in a family of historians. Your grandmother was a historian. I mean, they really gave me a diverse perspective on the world, right? Not just black and white, and it was very, very different. It was very, very different.
Right.
I mean, I look at it, I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I always say to you guys, I'm kind of multicultural myself because of the way I grew up. And you guys keep telling me, well, you're not one of us, right? Because I'm not. I didn't grow up looking the way that you looked. Although culturally, I was ridiculed because I spoke the way I spoke. And I was in Boy Scouts, I was in Cub Scouts. So I got it for being that way. But because of that, I was able to be a little bit more transcendable as a parent because I was embracing it. And I was one of those kids that went to college. It wasn't the first time I saw white people, right? We go to college in the early 70s, and there was whites and blacks for the first time in their lives that they had any kind of dialogue with a kid of another culture. And this is kids that are 18 years old. So that's the difference. You see it. I mean, you see it. It's a lot more prevalent right now, but as a result of what's going on right now, it's still we have a long way to go.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Jordan, as someone who grew up in a predominantly white area, and you can touch on your also college experiences where you were HBC.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, touch on how the view of biracial was when growing up in a predominantly white area, and then how you kind of gravitated even to Texas in that little fun area.
Absolutely. So I just felt like I was navigating, these two different identities, these two different races, constantly by white people being told, okay, what are you? What are you? You have to choose. And I never felt like I was going to choose. I never felt like I could choose. I had two sides of me that made me, who I am. And there was no way I was going to choose. So I was it shaped our mindsets. Like we were able to have these creative, open-minded, mindsets because we are mixed, because we have these two, identities. So I just use those, and you see yourself when you're with a group of people, and maybe you might, say or do things a little differently, versus when you are with a different group. And so you start to recognize those things and your different personalities, the way you're almost like a chameleon. You can just kind of like go in these different groups. And that's what I really strived off of. Like, I feel like I'm a very people person. I love all people. So I was just like, I'm going to use my tool that I have, and I'm going to bring people together if I can, or, I'm going to do me regardless. Yeah. So that has always been my mindset. is I'm not going to let anybody make me choose an identity, make me choose a race. You know, I'm going to, you know, stay true to who I am. And that goes for all mixed, biracial, multi, you know, racial women and men. Just, you know, stay true to who you are inside and don't let anybody tell you, you know, who you are. Because you know, it's hard enough growing up and trying to figure out who you are as a teenage woman and a teenage, you know, man. And so on top of that, being multiple, you know, races, it is very difficult. And so when I went to college, my first year of college, I went to a predominantly white institution. So it was most of all the Black students were athletes. So obviously you're very, very close to all the athletes being an athlete. And so you see that. You're like, this is so crazy that, you know, this is a huge campus of, you know, 3,000 students and, you know, 100 of them, you know, 300 of them, whatever. And most of them are on the athletic team. So it really just puts things in perspective in a very just weird way, a really uncomfortable way sometimes. And then when I went to an HBCU, or I went to Texas, it was predominantly Black, Latino, and white, and I loved it. I loved that diversity. I strived off of it. I think we all need it, and eventually this world is going to be, you know, mixed, and we're all going to just be able to have that perception of everybody else's feelings. And I think we need that. And then when I went to HBCU, it was next level. I mean, it was just so much that I learned, and just so many beautiful experiences, beautiful people that I got to meet and learn from. Right. So my experiences really just shaped my mind, and I'm still growing and I'm still learning. So
right,
just taking it day by day.
That's special, and that's, I think, one of the best things about being a biracial child or a product of two races or more races is you kind of have this mindset towards race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't get exposed to that until we're really thrown out there. Like they say, someone how to drown and how to swim, you just throw them out there and they'll learn that.
Right.
Well, Devin, I know Jordan touched on this a little bit. I know though that you have witnessed this question, like, what are you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you? How did you navigate that? When is the first time that really happened? Because I know for me it was summer camp. So what about you?
I can't remember. I want to say mostly in middle school. I mean, you would have kids that would say it in the tone that you said it, or they would say it, you know, because they genuinely are curious at what are you? But what I found is when I went to Liberty in Plainfield, which is a larger white population of kids, when they looked at me, they didn't see, they didn't have a real, I don't want to speak for everybody, but it seemed like there was a lesser understanding of what I was as a person. They saw just Black, or they saw just something different. But when I went to Parker, which is a larger, in Flossmoor, a larger African-American population of kids, I feel like there was just a more, even for like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they had a larger understanding of what I was. They knew that I was biracial. They knew I was, when they asked me, they already knew I was like Black and white. So I thought that was really interesting. But when they asked me, like, what are you? It was more, you don't want to say, you want to answer in a way that they would understand, and they would understand that you're, you know, Black and white. And I thought that was very interesting that understanding shifts wherever you go.
Well, because it's also who sees race. And this is a big discussion even now, is some people in the whole All Lives Matter movement say, we don't see race, we don't see color. And it's just like, as biracial kids growing up, we learned that that's not exactly the right way to think, because at the end of the day, seeing where people come from, the different cultures they are, and the different races they have within them is the very defining factor of who a person is. And that's how you understand how to treat people and like understand and speak with people and how to form relationships. And I think for us, as Devin and I moved to a predominantly Black area in the South suburbs, that's predominantly Black people. And you know what? Black people know race. Because now that I live in New York, I never knew there were so many different kind of Black people in my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's spread, and it's a melting pot, and it's everybody differently speaking different languages and accents. Right. And so I'm just like, I know there's many black people. But when you're around black people in an area like Homewood and Flossmoor in the Chicago Heights area, black people know race. They know like, you look different. What's in you? Right? What's your dad? What's your mom? Right? And that's how they define people. And I think that it's wonderful because it's understanding, okay, this is a person next to me, like I'm not gonna judge them or treat them different, but I understand them. Right.
Yes, we can honor them.
And I think that's the best part of being biracial, growing up biracial, is you're navigating this racial divide. You're trying to figure out who you are, but you're also able to view race differently than some people view race, right? I've had white friends and white family members who I know see color in a way where they're like, I'm ashamed of seeing color. And it's like, no. That's who you are. That's how I understand you, right? So when Devin says, like, when we moved, Devin, am I wrong? Like, black people see race. And that's such a great thing to be able to see who people are and see where they come from. So I'm glad you touched on that.
And be proud of that. And we need to be proud of being mixed. We need to be proud of being white and black. And, you know, that goes for every race. You know, be proud of who you are and where your family comes.
Yep, because at the end of the day, that's made you who you are. And you have all the control in the world to make you a better person. Okay, just because of where you are doesn't mean that you have to think a certain way. Dad, what do you think about all this?
Yes, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember the letter that you sent to President Obama?
I did send a letter to President
Obama.
That's awesome.
So I sent a letter to President Barack Obama because I remember this was a time period in my life where I was like, we all should like say we're biracial. We all should be proud of it, But I had yet to really understand. I had yet to understand that a person's racial identity is up to them, right? And especially in the area of politics, for us as biracial children, when we look at Barack Obama, we're like, oh, he's different. His mom is white from I think Kansas, and his dad was African descent.
Yes.
And he was in Hawaii. So he's like a little unicorn, first of all. We all should talk about that. But what I was like, hey, Mr. Barack Obama, why don't you own your biracialism? Why don't you say and identify as biracial? And the one thing Barack Obama never really did was identify as biracial, black or white, but he identified with the black race because they were being the most oppressed. And he understood that in order to preach hope, in order to preach change, he had to identify with this group of people because one, they needed the most help. People of color needed the most help, but also those people came out and voted. So at the end of the day, like politics is different. And I think that was a time period for me. I mean, when did you guys realize that people will self-identify themselves? Because first of all, we can dive into the one drop rule. After this is how society perceives you is how you're supposed to be. I mean, Obama, to a lot of people, is black. But to a lot of white people, he's like, oh, he's biracial, as you can see, because he's made it to the presidency. And so it's kind of, society can pick and choose what biracial is supposed to be. Right. So, Jordan, how do you want to dive into this one?
The same, actually, I was with Barack Obama, the same exact thing, and it didn't frustrate me that he didn't identify as biracial. It confused me a little bit because I was like, do I have to then? Am I black? Do I just say I'm black then? So, 2009, when he, went into office and was elected, that was huge for us. I didn't see many, or that much representation of mixed women and men. And so, we have Alicia Keys, we have, some, amazing mixed people like that. But then having a president that was mixed, right. And we know he was mixed. We know he had that, in him. And so that really just opened my mind, like, wow, that representation was huge for the Black community, for the multiracial community. So just representation in media is huge.
Right.
And
because
I appreciate that.
We were the only thing we really, as young women who are biracial, Devin, I don't know who you looked up to, maybe like Russell Wilson or something, but like we only had like Alicia Keys. We didn't have,
I'm trying to think
because at that time, growing up, I think we were in a sensitive area, Jordan, where like biracial still wasn't the wave. Like it still was something that people really didn't talk about. Now that we're getting older, more and more mixtures and interracial couples.
Yes.
People, and I had more friends who were half Asian, half white, there was so many different mixtures, and it was great. I was exposed to that maybe after college and high school. Like, so Devin, what do you think about I mean, first of all, who did you see as biracial in your life? Who was media? Do you even think about it?
Um, the first
Sports,
person,
anybody?
I can't remember the first person. It had to probably be Obama, just because I was probably 7 when he was elected,
Hmm.
and I didn't at first. I did think he was just black, but then that was when I just first started seeing him on screen. I didn't actually, have any research or like context on him as a person. So once I actually started to learn about him, I definitely started to see how he was not, he was not just black. And I would hear kids at school like, "Oh, yeah, it's our black president or I remember telling kids like, he is biracial. His mom is white, and they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like he is."
Yeah.
And sometimes they just wouldn't want to accept that, just because that would change a lot if they looked at him that way.
Yeah.
Having a black president for them and for us would be is just it
Oh,
means a lot more than saying biracial president, unfortunately.
right.
But I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And I also think, Devin, for you, did you ever, and do you, because I know that this would be a battle we constantly face throughout our entire lives, is the self identification battle. I mean, Devin, do you feel pressure to pick one over the other? Because those of us who know, like the one drop rules, kind of society's one thing is like, if you have one drop of black in you, which no one really knows how to measure, that means you're black according to society. But I mean, Devin, how have you felt that pressure yet? Have you come to the point where it's just easier to just? What do you think?
Well, for a long time, I would say I did, just because for the first half of my childhood, I grew up in mostly white area, and then I moved to an area that was mostly African American, black, and so it was definitely like, okay, so what? And I don't want to say, and I've seen kids that at a young age, I don't want to say pick a side or pick. They are more in touch culturally with one side
Right.
than the
Yeah.
other, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Being a biracial, you can identify or choose culturally how you want to carry yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would say I came to the realization that I'm not black or white. I'm something different. So I would say that, and I think that's the beauty of it. You can transcend that. You can transcend that part of yourself to be in touch with all people, all groups, all everything. So I
Absolutely.
think that's really cool.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. And dad, as a parent, as a black parent, black man in society who has grown up and you've seen some amazing things. For those of you who don't know, he was alive during the Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King assassination. Dad, I love to tell people this because you're like our walker in history book. A lot of the stuff that we have read about in history
Hmm.
books with two biracial kids, and then you had Jordan tag along for years. How did you kind of navigate? Obviously, you knew society was going to try to perceive us a certain way. How did you navigate that? How did you try to, raise us in a way?
Well, I think it was an attitude that was instilled in me early on with my mom that we won't give that power. We won't give those people power. You just have a
Hmm.
level of self-identity. Who you
Right.
whether black, white, biracial, was something that my mom instilled in me, and that was something that your mom and myself, it was constant conversation, it was constant communication around that, and
Right.
it wasn't something that we were unaware of. I think because I have been blessed to be older and be able to have visibility to how our society has viewed this over 55 years, I've seen it progress,
Right.
right, to where it is right now, where you see that, and you look at biracial, multicultural kids, whether you see Irish and Japanese, you see a mom that's black and a father that's white. You see it. It's a growing. It's just wonderful. But I think because of the messaging that I grew up with my mom, I was prepared. I was comfortable with it. It was your mom that was very, very different. Not only were we different in age, but we were completely different culturally. But she was, I think one of the reasons we connected is because she embraced our race, right? And she was able to understand it. And as a result of that, we were able to communicate that to you guys we didn't sit down and go, so this is how you answer this, this is how you answer that. It was just you guys saw the way we lived. You saw that we didn't pick and choose who we hung out with. We didn't pick and choose where we would go to restaurants. We didn't pick and choose any of that. So I think hopefully, and I'm not going to answer for you guys, hopefully what you saw was our role models and how we handled ourselves and how we formulate how to navigate through this.
Right.
Yes. And that peace is possible, that, you know, we grew up knowing that Black and white people can come together and love. And so we are a product of love. And so through that, I feel like our hearts are just so open, so, you know, to these creative problem solving and these situations, always, you know, ready to help and heal. So it's love, man, all love.
Perfect. And that's perfect, Jordan, because a lot of people don't realize that we're like free flowing people. Like if it affects us, like go ahead, right on.
Right.
Like, and
absolutely.
so, Devin, do you feel that too? Like you're not as judgmental?
Oh, absolutely. I feel so open-minded. Like I feel like I've always been that way. And I don't judge people. I'm very like benefit of the doubt person. I'll give you a chance. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And I think all people deserve, you know, a chance and love and equality.
Right. And so I guess a great question would be is, as while you guys were hanging out, we talked about during school and stuff like that. I remember at the time for me, I navigated two different groups of friends, right? There was the Black group and then there was the white group. Because people gravitate towards people who look like similar to them, right? And for me, I'm in between, like, all right.
Right.
Thursday, I was over here.
Absolutely.
Friday, I was over here. And then I didn't know I was
right.
But it was like I could.
You go into different lunch tables and
different lunch tables. So Devin, like I know that's for girls, but like for boys, like you guys are different because you guys play sports together from a young age. You guys are constantly like around each other. I mean, did you have moments where like you had your little groups?
Yeah, I would say that. It was definitely a lot less rare for me just because like I said, like when I was around mostly white and Caucasian people, and then I was around mostly Black people. But with boys, I just never saw. I never saw that anybody look at me. I didn't see white boys look at me differently. I never seen my Black classmates look at me differently. Like when I would talk to them, it would just be like I was talking to the other race. I had a mixture of a lot of friends, and I never really saw a difference in, you know, how I interacted with them. And I think that's really good for this generation, that they don't treat you differently based off, you know, who you hang out with, who you are, or how you're brought up. And I think that's really good.
Right. And I think that we'll definitely check in on you in 3 years.
Yeah, you feel
you're going to Yale, so in Connecticut. So the East Coast is different. It's very interesting, but for sure, going to an Ivy League institution, it's going to be very interesting as a football player on campus, how you navigate race, what you witness. It'll be very interesting. For those of us who don't know, Devin, when you were at Yale, can you talk to us about the diversity that you saw? I know you had some cool comments about it.
Well, what I was very excited to see when I went on my visit is that the football team, especially that I was around, it's a very diverse group. That was one of my main concerns going in. It was like, is it going to be, it's an Ivy League school. Is it going to be predominantly white? Is it going to be, you know, predominantly, you know, an upper class group of kids? But it wasn't. It was, you know, it was everyday kids that, you know, I know they were just like kids that I know here in Bolingbrook. And I thought that was pretty cool that schools like Yale, and you went to Duke, so you know that schools that are historically white and historically non-liberal are now very open to, you know, different races and different cultures and different ethnicities. And even with the general population of students at Yale, I saw a very diverse, you know, ethnic, you know, spectrum of kids. I saw Asian, I saw Middle Eastern, I saw everything. So I thought that was pretty cool that that schools that historically looked at as white or upper class are now being more ethnically mixed with people. Yeah, with people. And I think
that diversity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're taking that first step and they're at least trying to make it that way.
Right. Well, Devin is a biracial man.
That's so important.
Yeah. But you are half black, right? You're a half black man in society. It's just like a mouthful. How do you feel when you see situations where fellow black men are targeted or treated differently than white men? And as someone who was raised on the side of powerful black men in your family, but also you have witnessed Thanksgivings and stuff with white men in your family. Can you discuss with us a little bit? Do you see the difference? How do you feel about it? Do you have moments of fear?
Definitely watching, recently the news and watching the videos of what happens is definitely, it's almost disgusting as how these people are treated. I mean, I saw a video where there was a black man and a white man doing the same thing during a protest, and they just walked right past the white man to the black man to put him down and what have you. And I just find it resonates with me because I grew up around white people that they just weren't like that. They didn't see race like that. They weren't that way. So it really makes me upset when I see that because I know people in my life that aren't that way, and there's people out there that are consistently being like that and having that impact on society. And it's not, especially people in power, such like police officers. It's definitely something that needs to change.
Yeah. Well, racism is taught; it's not inherited.
Right.
And we know that, especially as young biracial kids who navigated race on our own and didn't really see it in a negative light, but more of a positive, right? Because it's how we see people, how we treat people, how we feel people. And I think that, Dad, can you give us a little outlook? And we're going to dive into a little bit about our own privilege, because as biracial kids, we have privilege. And we know we're extremely lucky in a system that constantly tears down people of color, but especially black people. We know we have a little bit of privilege, or a lot of privilege, because we still have half white in us and we still are lighter than some people. So we are perceived as sometimes not as threatening, right? Dad, as a black man who's raising a biracial child, and you're sending him out into the world, has it ever resonated you on sometimes that society sees him as a threat as a black man, even though he is, obviously the color he is, and he is half white, was raised by a white woman. Can you explain to us a little bit your thought process in raising him? Because raising him was very different than raising me.
Well, with both of you, I think it's because of my background, because of culturally the way I was brought up. Your grandmother really preached on how to be transcendable and how to not validate any negative perception that one race would have over us by validating the way that we carry ourselves, and that's, to me, really helps, and that helps you guys, versus someone who may not necessarily be able to do that. It exists. You still have to be aware of it. How many times have we gone to restaurants where the three of us will walk into the restaurant and we get sit in a certain place, and you guys did not believe that for a while, and then I said, well, I tell you what, we'll go to the restaurant. You two go first, get your table, and where we were seated was a lot better, right? So it still exists. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm just trying to give you visibility. What we're trying to do now is give people visibility of acceptance. Right?
Of all experience.
Make you haters, but just let you know that there's that the institutional racism that exists in sort of a clandestine way. Today, where when I grew up, it was outright right in your face, right? I mean, I saw the KK rallies. I saw the KKK rallies. I saw that. Fortunately, I grew up in a really cool town, Elkhart, Indiana. I got a friend of mine, Paul Decker, who was one of my best friends. I don't know if you put his comment up there, but why don't you put his comment up? And it kind of represents kind of where I grew up, and kind of really helped me formulate how I was able to kind of communicate this to you guys. Did you find it?
Yeah, it's up.
Let's see it.
Yeah, so our viewers can see.
Okay.
It says, I'm lucky, Shafer and I are lucky to not only have wonderful open-minded upbringing from our parents, but also to have been lucky enough to have blended sports, scouts, and such close inner-city friends, neighborhood friends. I've loved many other races growing up as my brothers and sisters truly do much to the parenting we were lucky enough to be blessed with. Which is wonderful.
That's big.
Yeah, so as a result of that, unfortunately, a lot of our parents, both black and white, have not been able to grow up in that embracing type environment. So when you approach these very difficult situations, we have visibility to what we have visibility to now. It's challenging.
Right. And that's a good point. I mean, it's hard, and it was hard for me until yesterday, where I really sat down. And those of you who follow me on Instagram know the story I put up, Shafer Suggs _. I put a story up, and it really dawned on me yesterday is the beauty of the black man and the power of being raised by one and seeing the resilience and how he faced adversity. But also now I have this young little biracial man who society often sees him as a black male, who is now going to Yale. He just graduated from high school, and he's beating the odds in a system that makes it so easy for it to be impossible, right? And that just really dawned on me is the brilliance of Dad. You probably didn't even try anything, because Devin's like a little angel and everything, and he did everything himself. But you have molded, as parents, he has lived in this kind of bubble where he has always saw that it was possible, and he always saw that he had no other chance, you know what I mean? Like there was no other, you don't get to fail. You must go do it regardless of circumstances, regardless of how the system treats you, regardless of all these things. But at the end of the day, and then this is the idea that a lot of people have, is no matter what, you have to work twice as hard, right?
Right.
And so that, yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's just something as you know, you knew grandma, and you knew that that's the way. No matter how difficult as it was, how unfair and how unjust as it was, we still had to figure out a way to be successful.
Right.
And, we're not going to allow racism or allow someone to take our dream and take our dream. We're not going to give them that kind of power. And that was the kind of messaging that I grew up with, and I tried to communicate that to you guys too. And hopefully it worked,
Well, it worked.
So one question, I love this discussion a little bit. Jordan and Devin, Jordan first, growing up in a predominantly white area, and for those of you know, Jordan was raised by her white mother. How was your experience with your white family members? Because I know Devin and I have our own comments on it. How was it? Were there ever, if we touch on discrimination, we touch on, and obviously there's comments where you're just like, oh, cringe, that's not the right thing.
Cringe, exactly.
How you probably navigate it. How do you explain that a little bit to us as a biracial kid?
It is, I mean, that's a loaded question. My mom taught us a lot about our history. Not having my black family present was extremely hard. Just trying to find that other piece of me that was missing. And so my white family tried. They tried so hard, and I will always commend them for their effort, because they don't know what it's like to be black. They didn't know the struggles that we were going to go through. They had an idea maybe, but so they tried to prepare us a little bit. But it really should have been a topic that we talked about more, unfortunately. And so that can be very confusing to just be trying to navigate and not know what we can talk about or what's comfortable, what's uncomfortable. But my mom did always make it very apparent that, society will look at us as Black or as white, and society will try to, as we talked about, put that label on us and try to defy us. And so I just always try to stay educated about history, about what's happening, because my family tried, but they didn't have all the answers, and they didn't know what was. I basically had to go on my own path and navigate that very alone. Thank God I did have my 2 older siblings, so I saw their experiences and it did help me. And I could talk to them about a lot of things, but looking back, it was definitely something we just, pick your head up, go, get through it, that kind of thing, that kind of mindset. And that's how I dealt with pain. That's how I dealt with a lot of things, was just, all right, let's just keep going. So, it's a really interesting way to deal with things, but that's how I kind of handled it.
And Devin, I mean, me and you, ours is more of a passive, they don't realize they did it situation. I know for one time I was speaking, I'm not going to dive into this as much as you can, but one time I was speaking and I think the word ain't was in my sentence, which is a word in the vocabulary, and it's in Webster's dictionary. For those of you who don't know, the South will agree with me on that.
She looked it up.
All was in the dictionary as well. And I was corrected, as that's not the proper way to speak. And I'm thinking to myself, like, who are you to tell me what the proper way to speak is? Did you write Webster's? No. I mean, and Devin, you probably
Merriam-Webster.
I spent more time kind of being immersed in that side of our lives a little longer than you did. But I mean, Devin, did you ever have moments where you were like, that doesn't seem right? Like, or that comment, or maybe this conversation is about to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely like an awkward moment. It's nothing too blatant where you can be like, whoa. It's nothing like that. It's just little things that are like they don't know they said it, or they don't know they
Absolutely.
did it. And it's, I want to say it's it's not their fault, but at the same time, there's things that you should know as an adult in America that you shouldn't say, or how you should act. I understand if you were raised a different way or you weren't raised in that environment, but you have an obligation as a human, and to have that humility and understand how to treat and how to talk to certain people, and what you can and cannot say, and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And so, I mean, I think that's just, the only thing you can do is just, rise above it and, continue to be the person that you are, and not, change for anybody in those situations.
Right. And I also want people
that part.
Yeah, I want people to know that ain't in y'all is called ebonics. And that's the actual language in the world. For those of you who think ebonics is slave talk.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so growing up in Rachel in 2020, last 6 days, our country has been on fire at night, and there's also been great protests during the day. Jordan, we know you were out there protesting at the Biracial Women. How do you feel?
So many emotions. It was so exhilarating. It was so amazing to see all those bodies, white and Black, come together as one. It was so beautiful, but at the same time, it's so sad. It's so painful. And the fact that Black lives have to still go out and fight for their own lives, as basic as that is, that fact that they're still out there doing that, it is hard to see. But all I can do is respect and help and use my privilege that we talked about, that we have lighter skin privilege, so we can use that and uplift our Black communities. And for those people who don't have voices, or people who don't listen to their voices, we have to be that neutral ground and uplift all people. and bring everyone together. So I was there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then it started to get a little crazy. And I have a little anxiety with situations like that, and so I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. But you know, the peaceful part was amazing, and then things started to just get nasty. And so I just hope everybody who is protesting is peaceful, and you know, be a rebel with a cause. And I think love can still conquer all. So just be strong out there.
Right. Well, I guess we touched on self-identification earlier. For me, in the last 3 years of my life in college, and where a lot of this happened, we've had discussions, ESPN, Sports Center covering Colin Kaepernick. We've had that situation with the NFL and their hypocrisy, and the great things for society, and speaking out. And you see these black bodies continue to pile up day on day, according to police brutality. As a biracial woman in society, it's hard for me not to lean one way. Just because being on the side of the non-oppressed and not speaking out and all that is a form of oppressing someone else in your own way. So it's hard not to lean towards my black side a little bit, because I've seen for years the passive aggressive racism. I've seen the denial of racism that is racism. I've seen and heard discrimination from my white friends, my white side, where it's like, you know what, this isn't even a black versus white thing. This is a legit right versus wrong thing.
Right.
Like
that part. Yep.
No, that side's wrong this time, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying all white people are wrong. I'm saying
right.
The situation of whoever views black people and people of color as beneath them and in a threatening way that is not equal, that is the problem. Okay, and it's hard not to navigate towards the group of the oppressed, right? And Devin, Jordan, like either one of you can go, but like, has your self-identity changed a little bit? Have you just been like, oh gosh, like that's half of me, but we're acting foolish? This is our last question to wrap it up.
Oh, absolutely. It's very real, that feeling of not choosing a side, but choosing right or wrong, like you said. And it's not all white people I have a problem with. It's racist people and ignorant people. And that's also a topic too, is it ignorance or is it just racism? And I know there's, you know, different levels of it, but just truly right and wrong and just doing the right thing and basic human rights, like that's where we're at. It's not that hard to grasp, really.
Yeah. Devin?
Yeah, I've seen just a lot of, I want to say ignorance, but it's just people that just refuse to accept what the problem is, and people that are just so, you know, they're brought up in such a certain way that they just physically, it's almost like they can't, it's not possible for them to see the problem. Yep. And I think that, you know, the fact that you still continuously have to explain it shows the problem, because the people are just refusing to accept and, you know, see what needs to change. And they think that it's no big deal. They think it's no big deal because it's not happening to them. So, exactly. I mean, once you're in the shoes of those people that are being oppressed, you can't gauge how big a deal it is, because it's not up to you. It's the people that are oppressed that get to decide how big a deal it is and how important it is. You need to, I don't want to say an oppressor, but on the other side, you need to accept that, and you need to listen to that, and you need to use that privilege to change and to change and alter that situation as much as you can. And I've seen, you know, white people protesting, and I've seen white people, you know, there's a police line, and there's white people that'll, you know, stand in front of the black people using their, you know, privilege to protect and stand up, strengthen the movement. I think that's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And Dad, I mean, any final thoughts on all of this? I mean, you are our history buff.
I think we should continue this on Wednesday, because it's more conversation. We don't have another hour.
So much more.
Wonderful. You know, I'm just a vessel of there's so much that's going through me, and I'm emotional to watch the three of you. It's so, you're just amazing. And for you just to have visibility and a sense and the consciousness of at your age is just wonderful. I just hope that people get a chance to watch this show, and I hope that they would continue this on Wednesday.
Right.
Yes. We're making a change.
Yeah, make the change. We'll be back Wednesday. But thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Devin, for joining us today. Hopefully, we can get both of you on Wednesday. We'll dive into a little bit more of like how to parent and how to help. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this Monday morning. Once again, we pray.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Love you guys.
Are so happy, and we pray for everyone out there who are peacefully fighting or even fighting to have their voice heard. We see you, we hear you, we feel for you. To our people that are silent, we see you as well. And we want to pray that you get courage enough to help and fight and use your privilege and your platform to help those who can't. We'll continue this topic on Wednesday. We will dive into a little bit about how to raise biracial children and how to guide them a little bit in navigating the biggest part and form of the human race. Thank you to our platforms, Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and most importantly, Ether60 TV out of Phoenix, Arizona. Again, this is Faith Family Focus, where we want to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others and strengthen the family core. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Monday.